Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again right here on the Global Underwater Explorers YouTube channel. My name is Nico Lurot, avid GUE diver and avid underwater photographer, as you will know if you follow the Creative Imagery for Divers series on GUE TV. We are very happy today to be launching a brand new video on a brand new series, in fact, on the channel, where we are going to be interviewing high-profile individuals from all across the diving industry who have got unique and interesting careers. Because while we all know that there's a very obvious career path in diving, which is being being an instructor trainer, that of education, diving and scuba diving has got all sorts of crazy, weird, and wonderful career paths one can go on that branch off from the atypical route. And so, what we're going to do today, we're going to start with a guest who I'm really happy to be joining us from Halcyon, Mr. Mark Messersmith, who's going to tell us about his journey and about what his scuba experience has been throughout the years. Mark, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Nico. Always a treat to see you. Thanks for doing a
And to
great
you,
job for
sir.
all of us.
Thank you very much. And it's great to see you too. So, listen, Mark, I know you're very busy. So, I'd like to just get straight into it if that's okay with you.
Please.
Um, could you tell myself and the audience a bit about yourself, what your current role is, what's involved with it, and, sort of map out what your path has been?
Sure. So I'm presently the COO of Halcyon. I've been that for about 8 years now, though I've been a Halcyon customer for really since the beginning. And so it was sort of a natural and easy progression for me when the opportunity arose. I'm also on the board of directors for GUE. So I wear two hats, and as I travel the world, meeting many of my friends out there, I get to share the passion and answer questions on both sides.
Fantastic.
So that's what I do now. I still teach periodically, mostly instructor training activities, and I get called periodically from different military and special groups that are looking for a unique training or a unique product. So that's really what I do.
And as far as your role in Halcyon of CEO is concerned, so I mean, I guess the question two kind of builds perfectly on that. Can you tell us a bit about kind of your background and
Yeah,
how you got into manufacturing specifically with
sure.
Halcyon?
Yeah. Well, Halcyon's been around for a little over 20 years, and Robert Carmichael and Jared created and built and still own Halcyon. And so they've been running it. And about 8 years ago, they came to me when Casey McKinley was leaving, and he was in the former role, the current position formerly. And when he went off to work with Suex, they said, "Hey, Mark, I know you're a business consultant. I was a business broker. I was a guy that helped people buy and sell businesses." They said, "Can you come on in and help through the transition?" I said, "Well, sure. That's what I do." And then he sort of looked at me and goes, "Well, that's really not what I want. What I really want you to do is just come over and take over and run the show." And so I said, "Let me think about that." But I've been feeling like I used to be a corporate guy, and for many years, I wanted to be Jacques Cousteau, and there weren't any Jacques Cousteau jobs out when I got out of college. I was a marine biologist, in fact.
Oh, wow.
And I worked for SeaWorld. I did research for a while, and I was trying to get a Jacques Cousteau job. And I found out they said, "Well, you got to go get your PhD." And as I was enrolling, I realized I started asking the people that had their PhD, "So what kind of Jacques Cousteau job do you have?" And they said, "Well, I'm hoping to be able to teach junior high school." And I went, "Hang on a moment. I'm not going to go get a PhD just to maybe possibly teach junior high school."
Right.
So I was a bit puzzled then, and that was when I was started talking with my dad one day, and he goes, "Well, look, if you want to spend time in the water and you want to go diving, you don't have to have a job to do that. Why don't you become a business guy and you go buy a boat and you go diving whenever you want?" And I went, "Hey, that makes some sense." So that's what I did. I ended up switching directions and becoming a business guy and got some more degrees, and then I worked through some pharmaceutical companies. I had a few businesses of my own, and then I ended up in the theme park business for almost 20 years, building ride systems for big theme parks all around the world.
Oh, wow.
And so I worked as a sales guy, then I became an executive and high level guy building rides, and to the point where we even built some attractions in the Empire State Building and in Times Square. We created another company specializing in virtual reality entertainments. won all kinds of awards and such. And then that company was purchased by a big gaming company out of Japan. But they said I had to go with them. And so me and the company went, and we did that for about 5 years until the home video market really blossomed. And then I said, well, look, I don't need to have 100 employees anymore. I just assume just go do deals. And so I started being a deal maker, and I did that for almost 10 years before I got that phone call from Jared, which took me to here.
What a career path.
It's strange, yeah. So I said I've had a few
pretty
careers.
diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. What completely unrelated to diving, just because I'm a bit of a theme park nut myself. Any big rides you've worked on
a bunch. It's been a few years now, but back in the day, we did most of the rides, the big rides at Universal Studios. So we did the Jaws attraction, Earthquake attraction, Back to the Future attraction. There was another couple of special. We did the ride systems. There's other people that did the shows. Other people did the sets. We built rides. And so I worked with a bunch of highly trained engineers that's what they did. And it was fun, but it was business. And then I ended up on the operational side when I switched over to the gaming and virtual reality and simulation stuff. And then people just said, well, go do stuff. And so I got to do lots of creative things. So it was pretty fun. But then I, as all things, and you'll hear as we talk, the work is fun and motivating. It's all the people and attorneys and all that other stuff that sort of takes the fun out of it. And I got to a point where I said, all right, that's about enough of that. I'm going to go back from 120 employees to 1, and it's just going to be me and my dog, and that's what we're going to do. And that was great. I was happy there doing that, but I felt like God was telling me, well, look, I gave you a bunch of pretty good skills. You need to get back in the corporate world. And right about then is when Jared called.
Talk about stars aligning, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what so I ended up with the Jacques Cousteau job after all those years anyway.
Yeah, literally. Full circle, right? That's awesome.
So it was pretty cool. So I feel very blessed, and I've been excited, and and I continue to have adventures both in business and at home. So it's been an amazing life.
I mean, given some of the things you've just described having worked on, I almost feel a bit stupid asking this next question. But for the sake of staying on script, when it comes to things like equipment manufacturing, is there a piece of equipment that you really don't look forward to working with because it causes more technical difficulties than others? And likewise, is there a particular piece of kit that you love working with?
Yeah. So it's a great question. And my fundamental question, when I used to get asked a lot when I was in the gaming and virtual reality, they say, what's the greatest, coolest attraction? And I always, because I was a business guy, I said, well, it's the one that the customers like best, because that's what pays the bills and is most interesting. But when it comes to new equipment, we're always playing with things. The equipment's fun and it's stimulating, and it's like a chess match. You got to sort of figure out how to make it work. And when you think you got it, you try it and you go, oh, I missed that part, or something surprises you. So the equipment is not the obstacle. It's usually the people aspect of it, of trying to get people to do the things you're looking for them to do, to get the feedback. And then, of course, as you start moving into launching, you have attorneys that are involved, you have engineers and fabricators, and there's a lot of challenges in the world to get stuff done, and it's become even harder. Yeah. So I always look forward to the equipment because it doesn't talk back to me. Everybody else seems to.
What's actually, while we're on the topic of increased difficulties, what's been one of the biggest constraints? What's been one of the biggest difficulties of manufacturing dive equipment during COVID times? Is it just been the lack of demand, or is there something else?
The demand has actually been okay for us because we're an international company and most of our sales are international. We've been able to make it work. We shut down for a little bit of time. We switched to making masks and hoods and stuff for the medical profession for a little while last year.
Right.
But we've been blessed that we've been able to keep it going, and we've had strong dealers and distributors that have hung in there, and it's worked. But as everybody knows, there's a lot of chaos out there, and mostly in shipping. And so that's been the biggest challenge. And because we're international, we saw this coming. I'd been in China a handful of weeks before. We saw what was starting to happen there. I didn't envision it was going to be this big or last this long, but we started preparing right away, building up supplies, tightening down the hatches. So and because we own our own factory, we're largely autonomous in being able to make stuff. Now, having said that, we still have to get raw materials. And, it's pretty tough when a vendor says, yeah, we'll ship it out to you in 4 weeks. And that 4 weeks turns to 12 weeks. And the price he quoted you was $4,000, and it comes in at $28,000 because of shipping, and it's almost impossible to make that stuff make sense or work. So that's the hard part right now that business owners around the world are facing. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
Wow. Okay. Well, food for thought for everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's why you see prices starting to take off, because first people started absorbing them, and but after a while you go, well, I can't keep absorbing this. And like a stainless steel backplate, the cost of steel has gone up more than 1,000%. So it's like, well, I can't pass all that along, but so we do the best we can, and we absorb some and share some, and we're still plugging away and having a solid year.
That's great. It was great to hear. Big fan of Halcyon, obviously. Got
a
single, double, got the Focus 2.0. Yeah, I'm basically, since I moved over to GUE, as one kind of does, one experiences Halcyon and you think, ooh, that's quite good, isn't it? I like that.
Yeah, I often feel like a pusher when I show up at a dive site and I go, have you seen this? And, but I did the same thing. I didn't have much Halcyon gear, and then now I can't get enough. So it's good stuff with good people.
It really is good stuff. So, I mean, I can imagine having worked on things like the rides and the virtual reality and all, and your clear aptitude for what seems to be engineering. I mean, that must have transferred over quite well to equipment manufacturing. But if one hasn't had, should we say, your life experience in the path that you've walked, what qualifications does one need to work within equipment manufacturing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, it's more about you don't have to be an engineer or an attorney or an accountant. In fact, that's not necessarily what's going to help you the best. What's going to help you the best is a passion and the ability to stay very focused on small things and in a repetitive nature. When I used to build a roller coaster, we build one, and then we go off to the next product. Now we're building literally thousands and thousands of wings a year. So the challenge there isn't the wing per se, but it's to keep the quality at a high level. And then as a leader, I said, well, how do I make this easier or better for our team? And I look around, I go, where are there places that there might be a single point failure? We have a machine that welds everything, all the inner bladders, the SMBs. It's an RF welder. Well, we only had one of those for most of our career. And I always would talk to Jared and Robert. I go, man, if that baby goes down, we got a problem.
Yeah.
But so over the last couple of years, we've eliminated most of the single point failures. We've been able to beef up. But all that to say is, if you want to work hard and you can stay focused on a goal line, then, and you can prove that over and over again and stay committed, then you can have a successful career in manufacturing, because there's so many different things to do, whether it's the engineering side, the concept side, the marketing side, the accounting side, actual production. There's really across the board. And so I find the people that have the greatest success are the people that have a solid work ethic. They come in ready or early and stay a little late. They'll work through, and they're always looking at how we can improve something, because there's always ways to improve. And those are the skill sets. But if you need somebody to always tell you what to do, you can have a job, but you'll just stay at the labor level. But if you get excited and passionate and looking to grow, then those ideas can blossom in all these different departments, and then you could help an owner of a company to grow. As a manufacturer, I was never really a manufacturer. I was building one-off stuff, but you just start looking at it and you go, how can we make this better? And you start by ask the people that are sewing every day or welding every day, go, what would make it easier? And they said, well, if you put a table over there, then I don't have to take 5 steps. Talk to anybody that's put together a kitchen in a professional restaurant. They have measured every step, every reach, every utility, utensil access. Because when you do a cycle 800 times a day, every one of those matter. And
Yeah.
so there was a lot of information in that, but it's not a particular skill set. It's a dedication to work and making things better, and for us, improving the quality. However, we can do that.
Okay, I like that. So, I mean, it's very, very much a mindset as opposed to a skill set driven,
It,
you
it
know,
is. It is.
supported by a passion. I like that.
Yeah.
You've kind of alluded to this just now, but let's dig a bit deeper. Like, so if one does enter, let's say one is employed by Halcyon, and
Mhm.
I've got this grand idea. I want to work in equipment manufacturing. I don't know where I fit in though. So,
Yeah.
what sort of different roles could one move into with
Yeah.
regards to equipment
Yeah.
manufacturing?
So in the factory itself, starting on one side, of course, there's procurement. You have to bring the product in. So we have a couple of ladies there that are quite talented at scouring the world and looking for people that can provide the specified product that we're looking for. That arrives. There's a shipping receiving division, people counting and seeing and making sure what we ordered is what we got, and did it arrive intact, or do we have a surprise where you got a pallet that came in smashed and crashed, and and then the products start moving through the building, and then there's guys that are involved in cutting the product, making it to the sizes we need, or welding them, and then of course we hit the seamstresses that are sewing things. We mentioned welding. In the lighting department now, we take all those parts and pieces and we start assembling the lights. So there's all these different coordinated skill sets, and whether it's running a machine, we just got an embroidery machine. So now we have a couple of ladies back there learning how to run this $40,000 machine that can put all kinds of custom names and logos on our stuff. So it's not like you go to school for that. And it used to be, when I was younger, there was a lot of seamstress type of jobs out there. Now there aren't any. You can't find a seamstress anymore. So now we're taking young people and said, all right, sit down at this sewing machine. Let me show you how it works. And they're learning fast, and it's working well. But then we have assembly, we have quality control, and then there's shipping going back out. And then there's the business side of that, from concept development, engineering, R&D, marketing, office, just general admin and office management. And then outside, there's legal people that are helping us keep things going. And then there's the leadership of all of these things and managing the day-to-day operations. So those are the pieces that are similar in a lot of companies, but those are what we have here at Halcyon.
Yeah, so many minds and so many hands of work going into making the perfect torch or the perfect wing. It's crazy. It's crazy when you kind of pull the curtain back and just see what's at work. It's amazing. I have a feeling I think I know what your answer to the first part of this next question is going to be. You've hinted at it already, but let's ask it. What's the greatest challenge about your role, and equally, what's the biggest joy? Challenge, I'm going to guess, is people, right?
It is. It's we always joke when I talk to other CEOs. It's never the work. It's always the people issues. And then everybody knows in their own life there's certain people that just need a little more energy to deal with than others. But then there's people's lives that get complicated. I mean, literally this morning I had an employee walk in and he just found out his mom's in the hospital and probably won't live. So that was an hour ago. So at the same time, while we're building really cool products, these are real human beings with real families and real stuff going on. And so I always try very hard to be a caring and guy that we take care of the employees first. And it's easy to say, not always easy to do, but the answer is take care of your family first and do these things, because life isn't easy. And when you got a bunch of people, life issues come that way. And so that's the challenge. But on the bright side, when you can bring a team together and you accomplish a unique goal, you'd asked me once about what really would make me smile when I'm at a dive site and I see a new diver, of course with Halcyon gear, but in the water, reasonably organized, somewhat stable and trimmed out, and they're diving and enjoying and seeing the fish and interacting and seeing it all. Their smile comes to me, because they're getting to enjoy this underwater world that we've known about, but now they just got invited in, and they have the equipment and capacity to enjoy it at an excellent level, not just as a survival technique, they're going to have that forever. And that's pretty cool. So when all the bad stuff happens, I think about those things. I go, but we're going to make another person smile. And we're going to get this out there and let them see the underwater world. And we're going to try to make our world better by ecology and project baselines and things like that.
Yep, correct. I mean, it's beyond dispute at this point. The more people dive, the more people will get on board with trying to protect the ocean. More eyes, more awareness. It's well said, Mark. I like that. I like that a lot. So I mean, okay. So now you said a moment ago that obviously you can't find a seamstress anymore because the industry's changed. So let's talk about change a little bit. Where do you see the future of equipment manufacturing heading?
Yeah.
And for any people who want to get into this industry, how can one best prepare themselves for that in order to be either of high value or as employable as possible?
Mm-hmm. Well, the employability comes with some experience. If you can just start building skill sets that where you've actually done stuff, and stuff could be really about anything, but you've succeeded at it. You've worked at a particular place, and you've done a good job there. Then you say, all right, this is a guy that knows how to show up, guy or girl, of course, guy that can show up, do the job that's being requested, and help his team move forward. But as far as what I see into the future, the scuba industry is at least 20 years behind most other sports industries from my perspective.
Agreed.
And in every division, it's from whether it's admin to R&D. And if you look at snowboarding or skiing or surfing or kites, or I skydive, and the technology in these other sports are just so much more advanced. I mean, think of all the things that we interact with that have electronics, and then there's next to nothing that has sensors in it in scuba diving. I mean, we have lights and computers, but that's about it. But why don't we have sensors telling me my PO2 the entire time? Why does it have to be in a rebreather? Why can't it be in my mouthpiece on my regulator, just telling me that stuff? Why can't I have sensors on my chest and my arms telling me not only heart rate, but I mean, I'm looking at, if I put sensors on back plates, why I can dial in the trim. I can get instant feedback when my knees are dropping and stuff. That technology exists. We just haven't embraced it and brought it in to scuba diving. And I think there's so much, our phone does so many other things for us above the water. Why not underwater? Yep. Or at least something that slaves to the phone. So I think that's where the next large development is going to be in the IoT, the Internet of Things, getting sensors embedded into all the different pieces of equipment. I'm playing with a handful of them. Easier said than done, of course, but that's where I see the future.
Do you think the reason that the diving industry is on a technological level still quite far behind the other competitive sport, its direct competitors in the sporting industry, because there's I certainly feel this, and I know I speak for a few other people. Do you think there's almost that reluctance among divers to have technology come in and, having things like beeps or sensors telling them get your trim right? Or you think it's a reluctance amongst the old school versus the new school? Or?
Well, sure. So in the beginning, we used to teach, don't trust anything electronic because it's going to fail underwater. And it did. So that was the case. And even though it wasn't that long ago, we were saying that about a lot of electronic rebreathers, there was high failure rates. Now, when I talk about these sensors, I also don't want beeping and flashing and all that. I mean, there's not a year that goes by that I don't have 2 or 3 manufacturers come to me and tell me about a full face mask and how I can keep in contact talking to my buddy. And I go, that's not what I want. Right. When I go underwater, I want it to go quiet. And if I want to talk to my buddy, I'll flash him a little light and I'll give him a signal and we'll be good. I love the peace and quiet. But I believe the technology can still be built into the equipment. Maybe I just download the dive afterwards, and instead of just saying how long and how deep, it's got all this other data that says what were the burn times, the CO2s, the stress times, all of that stuff. It could be done. You made me think about, why is diving so different than these other sports? And I'm guessing it's because it's in the water. Yeah. And, when people have to think about the breathing aspect and making something work without air, that just complicates all of it.
When it comes to actually employing people, we've talked about, the mindset, the passion, the desire, the motivation. There's a lot you've alluded to. But who would you favor more? If I said to you Exhibit A or Exhibit B, who would you favor more? Divers who have an interest in moving into manufacturing, or manufacturers who have got an interest in diving?
There's a good question. For Halcyon, it's letter A. It's the first one, because the more you can understand the customer, the easier it is for you to understand how we can build equipment for the customer and how we can solve the challenges of the customer. If I'm selling a product that's just going to end up in a Walmart somewhere where the customer I'm just fighting on a price point, then I'm just going to go for the business guy because they don't really care about the product. It just happens to be one of many. But if my target customer is a high brand customer, an excellent seeking person, somebody that's on the edge as exploration guys or record setting guys where their life is really on the line, I want people with insight and passion who will get it. And when we talk about, well, it has to be this way because underwater I can't reach it this way, or my fingertips go numb in a particular temperature, so the button's got to be they have to understand it, and that makes a difference. One of the videos we have, many of our employees don't dive, but they've been around it for so many years. They've been hearing all the stories, and so as they are working as a manufacturer, while they're not a scuba diver, so many of their friends are, that they know that they're building a life support system for somebody that they know personally. Right. And so that raises the bar about intentionality and quality.
Great answer. So let's say someone came to you with no experience. I mean, I appreciate Halcyon's one of the, if one was the one to work in diving equipment manufacturing, that would be one of the pinnacles that one would aim for, I imagine. But let's say someone came to you and they didn't have some previous experience. What advice would you give to them in order to get started?
Well, we can put them into manufacturing right away. So there's things you can do. Like I said, we have a new lady that's starting on an embroidery machine. There's people in shipping and receiving and all those things. So with no level or a very low level of experience, those are manual labor kind of jobs that are nice jobs and in a very comfortable place to live. So you can do that. If you want to grow, then you have to demonstrate expertise in that and a capacity to learn and bring greater value to the team. So we have a couple of guys in lighting, and one of them was pretty good at it. So we said, well, heck, all right, now instead of just assembling lights, why don't you keep inventories of all the parts and pieces? And then I took that. Now that you know what's there, why don't you start talking to the vendors who supply them? Now, why don't you start mapping out a budget for how much you need to build the inventory? Well, now, how much is it going to cost for a year? What if we want to do some R&D? And so here he just went from just building lights to actually becoming a manager and having a greater role. So that can be done in really all the different divisions, but you got to want to go to work and grow your skill set.
And the way you've just described it, that sounded very, very, very organic. As long as the desire is there, it's no obstacle. It sounds like
that's what we want. If somebody is passionate about it, my greatest joy is helping people achieve their goals. So if you come to me and says, man, I'd really like to be able to do this, this, and this, whether it's underwater or in business, I said, well, okay, let's build out a plan. How can we do that? And in fact, last week I got asked to, I guest lecture at the local university. It's not like it's a giant university, University of Florida. And they have a course there called Sales and Engineering.
Right.
And I get to go in and talk to the students there. And when I tell them about all these different business stories and point them, I said, go be a business person, understand how the business works since they're building those skill sets, even if you're an engineer, but then you can follow the money and you can always make sure you're where deals are happening and you're with a healthy company. And so, and I tell this to somebody that wants to be a diver or be a musician or whatever, you can do more than one thing at a time, but just continue to invest in your passion and you'll get there.
Yeah. And that, again, that's almost a life lesson. It's not just career advice.
It is.
Free life lesson. I love it. So last question, and then I promise I'll let you go and carry on with your day. And this is very much one I'm hoping you've got something juicy for. It's almost like, let's call it a scoop. Any exciting projects that haven't been announced that you're currently working on that we should be on the lookout for? So this is the moment to say, announce the project if you want.
It's so funny. So what I wrote down, and then I'll answer. I said, because you told me, I said, yeah, I have quite a few, but I can't tell you any of them. So that was my answer. But having said that, I'll tell you, I mean, we've been working on a light that is we're always working on lights, but we got one that we talked about technology. It's going to have technology that's unlike in any other lights. So that's something every week we have an R&D meeting, and we've got some pretty interesting developments in both wings and backplates. So we have things that are coming there. And then there's accessories that pop up here and there. Like we have the tech gloves that came out. They're just little short gloves with a cookie pocket on the back. And but that just was, I was sitting there at Deco staring at my hands for hours and, what can I do with that space? And that's where I ended up, something as simple as that. So those just came out. And of course, different colors and things, but and then there's even a few more things that are on there that are looking pretty promising that we're testing. So I think 2022 we'll have a number of pretty cool projects and products to introduce. So,
2022.
So you have to invite me back if you want to know the real ones.
What was that? Sorry?
I said you're going to have to invite me back when you want to get the details.
Yes. That's actually, I'm going to hold you to that. So as and when we actually have some equipment announcements, I would love to have you back on to kind of do reveals for the channel. I would love to do that.
Happy to do that. It'll be fun.
Last question, I promise. When do you think the first of these new products is going to be released, approximately?
It's a good question. We're testing a couple of things now. I mean, there's the infamous boot show at the end of January.
Right.
We might be able to get one. We'll see how the testing goes. You never know how the testing is going to go. I've had products that I thought were about to launch, and a year later, I'm still trying to fix something that we discovered during testing.
Right.
But I would say in the first quarter, we'll have at least, I would expect at least one of those coming out. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, and then these are big projects. They're not like the gloves. Each of these are pretty significant developments.
So I guess you're going to leave us there with a stay tuned.
I am. Well, otherwise you won't care. You won't invite me back. So this way I got to talk about next time.
I love it. So we'll bring Mark back on again. For now, guys, I'm going to end this discussion with Mark now. For everyone watching, if you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you are a fan of the channel, please, as always, hit the subscribe button. Please make sure you tickle the notification bell so you know whenever we've got a new video coming up. It's every Monday, 4 p.m. BST. You know that by now if you're a regular watcher, but just hit the notification bell. That way you'll know for sure. We will be bringing more people on from other parts of the diving industry to talk about their careers and to talk about how you guys can get involved with that. But as always, leave your comments down below. And if there's any questions that are directed to Mark, I'll be sure to get them over to him in an email, and we will be addressing them at a later date. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining me today and giving me your valuable time. I really, really appreciate it.
Most welcome. Thank you, Nico.